Welcome to Herbs in Action, COVID and Beyond, Replays, Session 2, Recovering the Lungs and Energy After Illness, Phyllis D. Light. This session was sponsored by the Herbal Nerd Society, in partnership with The Practical Herbalist and Real Herbalism Radio. Also, Mudpaw Design House.
The information provided in this session and this summit is not intended to cure COVID-19 or any other disease. Due to the novel and emerging nature of COVID-19, no herbalist or medical professional can claim to cure or know how to cure this virus. We are not responsible for the healthcare choices you make, including your use of food, herbs, or any other substances for any reason. This information is not intended to diagnose, treat, or otherwise take the place of a doctor's advice. Seek professional medical advice if you suspect you have COVID-19 or other health problem. This information is provided for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed in our summits are those of the speaker alone and are not that of Herbs in Action or the Practical Herbalist. Use this information wisely.
So with all of that said, I am very honored to introduce to you Phyllis D. Light, folk herbalist and owner of the Appalachian Center for Natural Health and author of Southern Folk Medicine. She's a fourth-generation healer who helps her clients and students learn to use herbs, foods, and other healing techniques to live long, healthy lives connected with nature.
Nice.
Phyllis, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And let me get you onto the spotlight. There you go. It's all yours.
Oh, well, let's see if we can make me not so big and grainy. I'm sorry about the graininess, folks. In a storm here, we have bad weather. And if I pop off accidentally, I'll pop back on as soon as I can. And don't see if I share my screen, what comes up? Here, this comes up.
I don't see you yet.
All right, hold on.
There we go. Yay.
All right, is this good?
That is beautiful.
All right, so now I've got to do slideshow. Ooh, or maybe not. I wanted to try to get it to
View, perhaps?
maybe. All right.
Does it work if you do view, the view menu? Does it have view slideshow or something like that on it?
Well, I was doing slideshow, which usually gives me, no, it's not even, oh, there we go. No, that's not it. That says what size it all is going to be. Let's try this. Can you see this?
So
Can you see the screen?
it hasn't changed at all.
Okay.
Share and reshare your screen.
Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties here. We're going to share this screen.
It seems to be technical difficulties are par for the course for us today. So you're
All right, from beginning.
There we go.
All right, so can everybody see? Can you see that?
I can see that.
All right, so I'm assuming everybody can see that. Now, what I can't see is the chat or any questions that come up.
And I'll monitor those for you. I'm going to mute myself out, but if there is a question, I will unmute and ask.
That sounds really good.
Okay.
So we're going to get started. I've titled this Recovering from COVID-19, but this could be useful information for about anything that respiratory illness that comes up. It could be useful for the flu, could be useful for the cold, or et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to focus on nutrition, herbs, and lifestyle. And let's get started. I've been thinking a lot about convalescence. So we have convalescence from chronic illness, and we also have convalescence from acute illness. So we're going to be talking about how do you convalesce from a debilitating acute illness. And let's just, what is convalescence in the beginning? What does it all mean? So convalescence is the process of recovering your health, your energy, your strength, your stamina, your motivation, your mood, and your well-being after any injury, illness, or surgery. Convalescence is a gradual process. Sometimes it feels like you're just not ever going to get better, that things are really stuck. but just know that if you give your body what it needs, it will do the best it can. And, and things with patience and steadfastness, you working through a program, you should be able to tell some improvement. Just know that it's going to take a while, and don't be discouraged. Just keep on plodding along. And when I am reading accounts of COVID, it seems like it takes weeks after the acute symptoms for people to get their energy back. So also understand that anytime you're in convalescence or recovery, it's going to be different for everybody, depending on your age, your gender, the severity of the illness. Even people who have reported mild symptoms of COVID also report that it can take weeks to get their energy back. Recovery can also depend on lifestyle influences, whether you smoke. If you're inhaling things into your lungs, it may take your lungs a little longer to heal. Drinking alcohol, your nutritional status. Your most successful approach is going to be a multimodal approach to returning your body to health. And this can include nutritionally dense foods, herbal aids, supplements, gentle movement, not intense movement, sleep, getting good sleep and sleep aids, getting some sunshine and fresh air, having good water, and taking the time to rest and heal. Be aware that, and this is something I've thought about a lot over the years, that healing and curing are not the same. That curing means taking the body back to a previous setting, back to a point of health before the illness ever came. So if you're cured, everything in your body is like it was before you got sick. But most of the time we're not cured, we're healed. And healing means returning to a functional level. If you have an acute illness or a chronic illness and you have a healing, you may totally never get back to where you were when you were younger or before this happened, but you can return to a functional level where you have energy and your mind is working good, your mood is good, your health is good. But know that healing sometimes leaves scars, physical and emotional. And healing is also kind of the reset of homeostasis for the individual. So your homeostasis after being sick may not be at the same set points as your homeostasis was before you got sick. So with any acute or severe illness, or really even any chronic illness, we have to honor the body and understand that it's changed, and that we honor that change. And we're just glad to be here. So convalescence is a time of building, not cleansing. So this is a point I really want to make as we go through this, that when you've been sick, especially with an acute illness like COVID, it's very depleting on the body. It's very depleting on the body's resources. So it's important to take the time to rebuild and restock those resources, not cleansing. Cleansing is a depleting activity. Cleansing uses up nutrients and will deplete the body. So if you're already depleted, you don't want to cleanse and deplete yourself even further. Build first, and then if you feel like you need cleansing, then cleanse. But just be aware of that. I see this. I see folks really sick and they feel like a good cleanse is going to turn them around. It may just deplete them more. So the goals of convalescence are to replenish nutritional deficiencies, to improve the ability to assimilate nutrients, to remove cellular waste that occurred during the acute or active phase of the illness, to thin and move the lymph to facilitate clearing of cellular debris, to rebuild damaged tissues. And to do this, we are going to utilize nutrition and milder nutritive tonic herbs to help restore organ energy and activity. And the ultimate goal is to replenish our vitality. I'm a vitalist. I believe in vital energy. You might want to call it chi or ki, but Western approach is vitalism, and we want to replenish our vitality. We want to replenish our vital energy. So to do this, we're going to first look at how to replenish with foods, how to get the best nutrition from our foods. And so during recovery, it's often better to eat very soft cooked foods and soups that are made of meats and vegetables that are nutritionally dense, because we don't want to overtax an already taxed digestive system or to limit the absorption and metabolism of nutrients. So when we cook our food, especially our vegetables, it breaks down the cellular walls and allows the assimilation of the nutrients. If we're eating raw foods and we have diminished digestive capacity, we are not really getting a lot of nutrition from those raw foods. Now, if you're doing homemade raw juices and you're actually juicing yourself, that's also breaking down the cellular walls, and you'll be able to receive more nutrition from those foods. But in general, you want to cook your foods. You want to make it easy. We also want to limit our meals to only 2 or 3 different types of food on our plate. It's like going to the family reunion and you want to get a bite of everything everybody's made, every casserole Aunt Susie and Aunt Delilah made. But there are so many different varieties on the table that it's really overwhelming to the digestive system. So when we're in recovery, kind of limit the meals to just 2 or 3 different varieties of foods to avoid overtaxing that process. Slowly build on, slowly work on rebuilding probiotic activity, but be cautious about overwhelming the immune system, even with good bacteria, because in a depleted state, even too much good bacteria is going to tax the immune system and is not a good thing. So also limit caffeine, alcohol, and food additives. So basically eat as clean as you can, cooked soft foods, vegetables, I should say, and meats. Spices. This is a place where in the recovery process, spices can be very useful. And a lot of this depends on what you feel like your taste buds are taking you toward, and what is going to help your digestive system with your constitution and your nutritional status. So make sure and salt your food to help keep your electrolytes up. And that also helps keep your stomach acid active. And some of the spices I think are really good in the recovery period that are warming and slightly stimulating, but not overstimulating, are cinnamon, cloves, turmeric, black pepper, cayenne pepper, garlic, paprika, cumin, caraway, cardamom, and ginger. And also to help aid digestion, you can have a small spoon of vinegar and a little water right before a meal if you are tolerating the vinegar. And one way to tell is sometimes when people are recovering, they lean towards sour foods for a short time or towards spicy foods. And you can tell when you're ready to let some of this go is because the vinegar is not going to be appealing anymore, or you feel like you're done with cayenne and cinnamon, you know, that sort of thing. So really pay in convalescence. Well, I guess it's true anytime. Really pay attention to what your body is saying. If you'll take a moment, take a breath, and kind of look in, it's often going to guide you in the direction you need to go. Any questions so far? I like to stop every so often.
The one question that we've had so far is that when you talked about the salt, Isabel asked, she said, my doctor said that she shouldn't have any salt because of her blood pressure, and she wants to know, is that hold true during recuperation as well?
Yeah, that would be true, especially if she's on medication and it's there, and if she knows there's a direct link between her blood pressure and salt. She'd need to like pay attention to that. But sometimes salt is not the big player in high blood pressure. It is going to depend on the person, like I say, in their constitution. Um, if stress is a big issue, if stress is increasing blood pressure, salt may not be an issue. But if her doctor has said, you need to honor what your doctor said, you're paying them to do that. Pay attention. All right. Let's talk about protein. We have to have protein. Protein is needed for rebuilding and repairing cells and tissues. It's needed for rebuilding enzymes and neurotransmitters. It's used to make hemoglobin and immune factors. And I know we talk about white blood cells a lot, lymphocytes, leukocytes, macrophages, all that when we talk about COVID. But there is one area that we haven't talked quite so much about, and I'm going to bring up here, and that's the complementary immune system. And the complementary immune system are proteins made by the liver to aid and the immune attack, whatever it is. And so we have white blood cells, and then we have the complement immune system. And in COVID, the complement immune system is playing a huge role in cytokine activity and inflammation. So we need to, and these are the complementary immune system is mostly made out of proteins, as are stem cells, I guess you would say. So we need to pay in recovery great attention to the quality and the amount of protein we're getting for rebuilding. If you were a meat eater, lean animal protein, chicken, fish, beef, pasture-raised organic is always preferable. If you're on a plant-based diet, if you're vegan, then really look at some fermented soy, are combining beans and grains in a way that you're getting a full complement of amino acids. If you're vegetarian and you're doing eggs and dairy, just look at eggs as helping you rebuild. Maybe not so much dairy, but look at the eggs. So within your dietary system, really kind of hone the skills and hone looking at protein. It's sometimes hard to get enough protein, especially in rebuilding and convalescence when you really don't feel like eating. And meat can be hard to digest if you're a meat eater. And even beans and grains can be hard to digest, and you may go, ugh, that's too hard. But just be aware, here's when you really need some protein. And so this is where those spices I mentioned earlier can function also as digestive aids to help you digest and process protein. We also have to have adequate stomach acid to be able to break down protein. So this is where the vinegar or sour foods. I mean, one of the soups I really love for convalescence is, and you can make it yourself or you can get it almost any Chinese restaurant, is hot and sour soup, because it has just that right amount of hot and sour that will aid digestion. It's got a little tofu in it, it's fairly high in protein. So that's the direction kind of I'm leaning and taking you taste wise for better assimilation. We also need good fats, and this is almost as important as the proteins, because fats create that strong cellular membrane, and the stronger the individual cellular membrane, the less susceptible it is to invasion. And it's been invaded. I mean, if you've had a coronavirus, your membrane has been invaded. The virus invades the membrane to get into the cell to start reproducing. So anything we can do to make our membrane stronger is going to be really important, and how long it takes us to get over it and how susceptible we are in the beginning. And later on I'll be talking about nutrients that help create a strong membrane too. But the basic building blocks of that membrane is cholesterol and fats. So I think this is one of the reasons why some of the studies that have been coming out found that people with higher levels of cholesterol did better with COVID. They had shorter times and they recovered better. That membrane has got to have some cholesterol. And of course, our liver makes cholesterol, but we can also get it from our diet. Fats are needed for our healthy hormone levels. They support brain and nervous system, especially the formation of the myelin sheath. And some people have been experiencing neurological effects from the COVID. Fat. They're also a component of prostaglandins, which help modulate inflammation, but avoid saturated fats. Saturated fats actually will lower immune activity. So go for good sources of fat. If you're eating lean protein, like beef or chicken, make sure the fat has been trimmed off the meat. If you're doing vegetable oils, I guess my favorite, and it's going to depend on your taste, would be olive and avocado. Grapeseed is good. Get that fat level up, but not saturated fat. Then carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are important to meet our immediate energy requirements, especially for the brain and the nervous system. And the brain and the nervous system, hey, they're in charge of our immune system. So let's think about it like that. If our nervous system doesn't have enough energy to fuel a charge and deliver a message, then that immune activity can be low. Sometimes when people get like nerve aches and pains, it's simply because they've been too restricted in their diet with good carbs. Now, I'm not talking about processed sugar. This is what I'm not talking about. I'm talking about good quality carbs. Fruits are good here. Steamed veggies are good here. And honey is really good here. So squashes, especially winter squashes, good form of energy. So we want to give our immune system enough energy, and our immediate energy is glucose, and glucose comes from carbs. Yes, we can talk about converting fat into energy, but when the body is taxed and feeling and in recovery, we have poor conversion. Fat is not our best source of energy. It's being needed to repair cellular membranes. So good carb energy right now is really, really important. And sometimes when people are just feeling really low and achy, I go, hey, just go eat a spoon of honey. And it's amazing about how quickly some of those aches and pains go away. If you don't have good quality carb intake, for energy, especially for the immune and nervous system, your body is going to start breaking down muscle protein for energy. And so carbohydrates protect muscle protein. So we don't want to get into that muscle wasting situation.
Phyllis, I have one. Dan asked a question, and it seems like it's right to ask now.
Okay.
Talking about carbohydrates. He says, what if I've been on like a paleo or a keto diet? Should I go back to that during recovery or after recovery? That would be one of the low carb diets.
Let me think about that a second as I pour myself more coffee. I would say you could still do your lean. All right, so I think during recovery, coming back to a better balance of like 30, 30, 40, like 30 protein, 30 fat, and all this is good quality. And then 30 carbohydrates, good quality carbohydrates, which could include some fruits, is going to be a good recovery diet. I think paleo can be useful if you're doing soups and stews in the beginning, but when you go from soups and stews to eating more solid, even like soups and stews, you need a lot of, we're just leaving out the beans, unless you're a vegan, right, or a vegetarian, and you're leaving out the grains. And so depending on whether you feel like you have any energy or not, because this is a big question, how tired are you? Just keep in mind that glucose is our number one fuel in the body that we utilize without a lot of conversion for its activity. So how tired are you? How low are your body processes? If somebody has very mild symptoms, staying on the same diet would probably be fine. It should be recoverable, but if you've been really sick, it's like clean slate. You got to start over on the diet. It doesn't mean you can't come back to it at some point, but in that beginning, you need to be on a recuperative diet. So I really go for more balanced, but not grains. You can still leave the grains out and just add more veggies, more veggies, more veggies. And actually, I think that's a little bit better. Now, as digestion improves, you could add some rice. That would be the grain, I would say, for recuperation. Whole grain rice at some point. But if digestion is really low, you might not be able to digest whole grains. White rice might be better. I mean, there's a time and a place. I am not a big advocate of processed grains, but when digestion is really low and you're trying to improve it, a little white rice gives you energy. And energy is what your body needs to do recovery. That doesn't mean you need to be on it all the time. What is the Candace, what is the name where you cook like mung beans or
Congee, I think. Congee.
Not congee, that's more like TCM. I'm thinking more like Ayurvedic. Khichdi.
Khichdi, yes.
Khichdi is a great food to add in after your digestion comes up a little bit, because it's beans and grains, and you can throw some raisins in that, and it's really awesome if you throw some raisins in there. So see where you are in your digestion and just go with that. Any other questions? All right.
No other questions yet.
All right, so during recovery, it's better to eat hard fruits cooked. So applesauce rather than a raw apple. Peaches baked or cooked, pears baked or cooked, plums baked, apricots. All these do better if they've been lightly cooked as far as digestion goes, because these are really like super high fiber foods, and we're trying to take the load off digestion, because think about it like this. I mean, 75% of our immune system is in our gut. And so what we want to do with this recovery diet is have high nutrition and take the stress off the immune system in the process. So we don't want to be overeating. We want to limit the amount we eat. Better to eat several times a day than a lot all at once. And we want to cook as much as we can. But berries, especially cherries, eaten raw. Dried fruit, I don't have it on here, but dried fruit should be soaked before eating. You want to make everything as easy on your digestion as you can. I have even sometimes recommended people go down to the grocery store and buy organic baby food. This is almost what it needs to be like for you to get enough nutrition and take the stress off your immune system. Also, I talked about limiting grains in the early stages of recovery, but you also need to limit nuts and seeds. And when you do bring them in, I highly recommend soaking them overnight and then either eating them soaked or soaking them and then roasting them. But we need to, the thought behind this is what we want to do is get rid of any anti-nutrients. And nuts and seeds and grains have lectins, and lectins are anti-nutrients. So we want those out of the diet until we're digestively able to cope with them. Also, limit dairy. Dairy is, for a lot of folks, mucus forming, and we're trying to get rid of the mucus. Oatmeal and rice are the two grains that I suggest adding back in on a limited basis. And I've already talked about the rice, but even the oatmeal should be soaked for a few hours, that water drained off, and then cook. Cook that oatmeal until it's really soft. Rice, I also suggest soaking it, even white rice, and not just rinsing it, but generally soaking it for about at least 30 minutes to an hour before you cook it. And any fruit juices you can get down is nutrition, especially if you're making the juices yourself, and that's awesome, but it should not be your only source of food. You know, typically we think about doing fruit juices and it's for cleansing. We're doing fruit juices as an additive to our diet. It's extra nutrition, and fruit juices also have some enzymatic activity that our digestion might really appreciate. All right, so now we're going to talk about some specific nutrients and what they do in the body and why we need them. So during illness, when we're sick, like with an acute illness, we consume, our body utilizes an amazing amount of vitamin A, because vitamin A is a part of that cellular membrane. All right, so we talked about the cellular membrane. Darn, I wish I'd made a picture of the cellular membrane, but just like this blah brown cellular membrane, it's mostly composed of fats, including not just cholesterol, but fat-soluble vitamins and essential fatty acids. But it also contains some phosphatidylcholine in that membrane. And so what we want to do is continue to support it, because now we're getting depleted. And so we'll store some vitamin A in the liver, but if you're vegetarian, your vitamin A or vegan is generally comes from converting a carotene into retinol. But during illness, when body processes are really low, you may not be converting. And so I have seen like a number of times where vegans or vegetarians were already kind of low status because of low conversion rates, and then they get sick, and really it's just hard to recover without some vitamin A supplementation. And vitamin A is really specific to all cells, but especially mucous membrane tissues of the lungs. So our lungs use a lot of vitamin A. And you may notice on your labels that this year, there has been a change in how we measure some vitamins and minerals, and this has been a requirement by the Food and Nutrition Board. So in the past, fat-soluble vitamins, essential fatty acids were measured in IUs or international units, but beginning this year, they have to be measured in micrograms and milligrams. Although you may see both on labels right now as companies transition out. So the new amounts is in micrograms for vitamin A. And this number I have up here is the basic minimal amount to keep a person healthy. But during illness, we might need way more than this. So vitamin A is one often during illness and recovery can encourage people to supplement with until their diet improves. So ultimately, supplements should be, in my point of view, should be temporary as we regain strength and our diet improves, because it's always better if we get it from our foods. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is a temporary thing. If you're baking or broiling your food, it's best. And especially doing carrot, like squashes and sweet potatoes, because really, if it's cooked like tomatoes, carrots, et cetera, it releases more keratines and it makes it more bioavailable for conversion to retinol, to vitamin A. As I said earlier, if your nutritional status is low, if you've been sick for a while, then your ability to convert a keratin into vitamin A might be really low or non-existent. So keep that in mind. Vitamin A is also needed for night vision and corneal health, bone growth, and this is like the big one. All mucous membrane tissues, wherever they are in the body, sinuses, esophagus, lungs, digestive tract, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, gallbladder, kidney bladder, vaginal tissue, all mucous membrane tissues, all need vitamin A. Vitamin A itself is very active against some bacteria and viruses. It just improves antibody response. It enhances leukocyte function. And I'm mentioning all these nutrients as we go along. I want you to be aware of kind of honed in on their activity with the immune system. They do a lot of other things in the body. We're just not talking about every single thing they do. We're just talking about lungs and immune activity and recovery.
Can I ask
Yep.
a question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to know, is it better, is there like a brand or a supplement that they should get for vitamin A, or is it really important to get it through foods as opposed to supplementation?
Well, if you're really sick and you're not able to digest, then supplementation. As I said earlier, it's always going to be better to get your nutrition from your food. But if you're sick, you're not digesting, then supplement along with it. It'll make a big difference. The best source of vitamin A in a supplement is a fish oil. So that should be the origin of the vitamin A. Otherwise, if it doesn't say source fish or some type of fish, then it's probably synthetic. And the synthetic vitamin A just does not work the same in our bodies.
Can you
So
get it also, like a lot of the like omega oils are being substituted, like the algae version of them instead of fish, so that they're vegan? Can you get it that way, or does it need to be fish? Like,
it needs to be fish because there's no vitamin A in algae. There's a keratin. We're still down to the conversion issue. So, I leave this to a person's spiritual and personal food philosophy. Here's the information. Just be aware of it. As a supplement, fish is the best source on the market, right? Otherwise, it's probably going to be synthetic. So just be aware. Vitamin A is needed for nutritional breast milk. Vitamin A is actually a medicine for measles, for the measles virus. It actually kills it. Now, if you care to look this up, the dose is like really super high. It's like 10,000 units, like 3 times a day for 3 days or something. It's also very active against some types of leukemia. It helps reduce the risk of ear infections. It helps with osteoarthritis, dry eyes, acne dermatitis, viral infections in general, and brain function. So our brain and our nervous system, remember that myelin sheath is made out of fats, just like the cellular membrane. And we have to have vitamin A for the myelin sheath and for learning and memory. A deficiency documented, all this is based on physiology and what our body needs. Night blindness. If you're having trouble seeing at night, it might be a vitamin A deficiency. And I kind of use that as an assessment. How are you driving at night? How well do you see? Increased colds and bronchitis if your vitamin A is low, and lowered immune system activity all around, increased risk of some cancers, dry skin and hair. Now, nutrients interact with each other, whether they're in our food or they're in a supplement, and iron deficiency limits the metabolism of vitamin A. So if you're anemic, even if you're eating some of these foods, you may not be absorbing the vitamin A. Even if you're eating fish, if you're anemic. So sometimes we have to look at doing like improving the anemia so then we can have better status in other nutrients. If vitamin A is low, we excrete C. We don't hold on to our C. This is why in some hospitals with COVID, they're giving intravenous A, D, and C, because we won't hold on to that all that C if A is low. Also, vitamin A works synergistically with D, and I don't have time to go into all that, but they can share receptors in the body. They can share receptor sites.
Kenneth had a quick question about vitamin A also. He just asked,
Uh-huh.
what about emulsified vitamin A?
Emulsified depends on the source again, so he needs to look at his source. But emulsified just simply means it's broken down into smaller drops for better absorption. That's fine. And any fat soluble vitamin, well, actually any vitamin, I always suggest taking any and all vitamins with food, because digestive capacity is up. You're going to get better assimilation. Don't take your vitamins on an empty stomach. You're just going to burp them. Take them with your meals. All right, next is vitamin D. So A and D work together. Here are the new numbers for vitamin D. They're in micrograms also. Of course, our best source is sunlight, so we can make it. Not found in large amounts in food, but found in cheese and dairy and butter from spring grass. Not from fall grass, but spring grass. It's in beef liver, so vitamin A, vitamin D is found in fish liver, which is why we have fish liver oil, but it's also found in chicken livers and beef livers too. And it's in the egg yolk. And they put it in fortified milk and fortified cereals. Mushrooms do have D2. What we need is D3. Our body uses D3. We do convert some D2 from mushrooms into D3, but it's a low conversion. You have to eat a whole lot of mushrooms, but if that's your best source or as an additional source, hey, go for it. D2 doesn't store well in our tissues. We store D3. Vitamin D is both a vitamin and a steroid hormone. This is why it's important. As a steroid hormone, vitamin D helps lower inflammation. Hormone receptors for vitamin D are found in 36 different organs and tissues in the body. Huge influence on the immune system. Can help prevent depression. And so something I really don't have time to go into is the depression that occurs after illness. And it's a special type of depression. And it's the depression that makes you feel like, no matter what I do, I'm not getting better. So why do anything? Stopping moving. I mean, like, that's a whole class on itself. But vitamin D can help prevent or lessen that depression that comes with illness. It helps regulate calcium levels in the brain, protects the brain from oxidative damage, helps improve our memory. It really is brain-centered. But here's the big thing. It can help activate or suppress genes transcription, and that includes how we make stem cells, how we make our immune cells. Needed for a normal nervous system and heart functioning. Oh, and guess what? Myelin sheath formation. We're back to those fats. A deficiency can manifest as osteoporosis, osteomalacia, nearsightedness, and hearing loss. Really, vitamin D really plays a huge role in our brain and nervous system. Can cause muscular problems, but here we go. Reduce thymus functioning. Our thymus, that gland or organ in the center of our chest, kind of like under a breastbone, that little hump that trains T cells. Right, there you go, Candace. Trains T cells. It's dependent on vitamin D. So if vitamin D is low, it lowers in our immune system activity and increases risk of some cancers. Vitamin D deficiency plays a role in multiple sclerosis. Remember that myelin sheath, rheumatoid arthritis, high blood pressure, inflammatory bowel disease, and can affect pregnancy outcomes. Any questions? All right.
No
Next is,
questions yet. So
okay. Next is vitamin E, which is also fat soluble. This is in milligrams, not micrograms. It's found in nuts, almonds, olives, wheat germ, sunflower oil, corn oil, safflower oil, dark green leafy veggies, avocados, which would be great in recovery, but we have to have fat in that meal to absorb whatever vitamin D is in the meal. So remember, fat-soluble vitamins need fat. Vitamin E is used in the formation of red blood cells. If your vitamin E is really low, you can have anemia. It protects the tissues of the skin, breast, testes, eyes, lungs, colon, and liver. It has anti-clotting activity, and I think it's like really important with in COVID to help keep the blood moving and avoid some of the clotting activity that seems to be a mark of later in recovery time. Reduces cardiovascular disease, it speeds wound healing, reduces inflammation, and here's a biggie, it protects vitamin A. And we need vitamin A in this situation, really important. Vitamin E is a cellular antioxidant. It supports cellular membrane. It's needed for collagen production, and collagen is the underlying foundation for most of our hollow organs. There may be mucous membrane on top, but there's collagen underneath. So this becomes important too. Protects against toxins and supports methylation process, which is how we transcribe genes and move toxins out of the body. Helps move lactic acid out of the muscles. So when we're really sick or we've overworked out, we get lactic acid buildup, it doesn't move. Magnesium, vitamin E together moves that out, greatly eases the aches and pains of either flu, illness, or overwork. It is anti-inflammatory in and of itself, and you can find the natural form on the market, which will say D hyphen, or the synthetic, which will say DL hyphen. You really have to read your labels because it's hard to find the natural without paying some bucks for it. If you're in deficiency, it causes tingling in the hands and feet, causes neurological problems right off. Remember that? The nervous system, the myelin sheath, loss of red blood cells, anemia, muscle wasting, reduced red and white cell counts, reduced survival for red blood cells, and retinal degeneration. Next is vitamin C. Really important in recovery. It's been important during the acute phase. So here we go. A water soluble for good immune health, 100 to 200 milligrams daily. And that's what the studies have found. Up here, I've got 75 milligrams. That's minimum. Good immune health, 1 to 200 milligrams. It is water soluble. Your best sources are raw fruits and vegetables. It's an essential nutrient. We can't make it. We have to get it from our food, and it is heat sensitive. So when you make applesauce, you've lost your vitamin C, but when you eat a strawberry, you've got it in bounds and bounds and bounds of it. Strawberries are a great source if you're not allergic, and we can store 4 to 6 weeks. It is made from glucose. This is why vitamin C is found in fruits mostly. It's made from glucose. And vitamin C actually follows insulin into the cell. So this is why diabetics may be at risk here for lack of vitamin C. So if there's insulin is not moderated and in balance, you may not be getting enough vitamin C. And I almost always suggest foods or supplements for diabetics because of this. It's stored in the adrenal glands, pituitary gland, thymus. Hey, another one for the thymus, right? It's also found in leukocytes. Leukocytes themselves are very dependent on vitamin C. It's found in the brain, the eyes, and the corpus luteum. And our ability to synthesize vitamin C from our food is dependent upon our vitamin A level. So if your A is low, there's a good chance your C is going to be low. Our requirement for vitamin C goes out the roof when we're sick or under stress. Remember, stress hormones are also have a vitamin C component. However, if you take too much, like this is why I encourage sticking to the 1 to 200 milligrams daily, or as a supplement. That's a supplement, or you just get it from your food. Because some people, if they take too much, our body is going to convert that excess vitamin C to oxalate, and it can contribute to kidney stones. It's an antioxidant. It also plays a role in collagen formation, which remember is the underlying foundation for our hollow organs. Plays a role in amino acid synthesis. It helps reduce cholesterol levels if they're super high. It's needed for us to utilize iron. It helps protect vitamins E and A. So you can see there's just like this complex starting to form, and it helps us speed healing from illness or injury. It supports the epithelial barrier function against pathogens. Huge. It accumulates also in phagocytic cells, such as neutrophils, and it enhances microbial killing. It's needed for us to be able to clear those spent and dead neutrophils from the site of infection to get rid of them, and it enhances differentiation and proliferation of B and T cells. So you can see how important vitamin C is to the immune system. It also strengthens our blood vessels and makes them less fragile. And one of the signs that I look for if somebody has low vitamin C status is they brush their teeth and their gums bleed. It contributes to all over immune defense and ways with both the innate and adaptive immune system. And supplementation with vitamin C for folks who aren't getting enough from their food does appear to be able to both prevent and treat respiratory and systemic infections. A deficiency is called scurvy, poor resistance to disease, easy bruising, slow wound healing, tiny hemorrhages. The blood vessels are really a good assessment sign of a person's vitamin C status. Low vitamin C can actually cause high blood pressure. There's poor digestion, nosebleeds, etc. Next is B6. Got a question?
We got a quick question for vitamin C.
Yeah.
There are herbs that people say are high in vitamin C, like rose hips and hibiscus. Is the heating of tea with those too much? Does that ruin it?
Well, the processing of the rose hips might be too much.
Okay.
You know, unfortunately, if they're gathering their own rose hips and air drying, even air drying, you're going to lose some, but you're not going to lose it all. If it's processed, you get it in a capsule, they probably ground it and heated. Those machines get really hot. Actually, I think gathering rose hips and tincturing them, is the best way to go.
Or you could tincture fresh hibiscus.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then you're more likely to get some rose hips. So the warm water or cold water infusions are going to be better for your vitamin C. Right. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. B6. It's in whole grains, beans and peas, nuts and potatoes, meat and eggs. So there's a lot, raisins and avocados. So there's a lot of foods that have B6. So it should be pretty easy to get in a diet, even in recovery. You should find something on the list. It helps make most all of our neurotransmitters. So if B6 is low, our mood is definitely off, our stress level is off, and it helps convert tryptophans to serotonin. So you can see how important B6 is for neurotransmitters. And this is important during recovery. It helps maintain our magnesium levels. So if magnesium, I think it's low, I often recommend taking this B6 together with magnesium. So in that magnesium, vitamin E for sore muscles, I always recommend a 50 milligram B6 and with that. That's just a really nice combination. That combination also increases ATP production and gives you a little more energy. Just move that move the soreness right out of the muscles. It helps form antibodies. Huge, huge, huge. Promotes lymphocyte production. Helps the liver work better, reduces levels of homocysteine. Our nervous system has to have it. It's important even in the formation of the nerves. And it helps keep our blood sugar balanced. Deficiency, cracks in the corner of the mouth, a sore tongue, scaly lips that just won't, like, you can't drink enough water, right? You can't get enough oil. That can be a sign of B6 deficiency. Actually, any B deficiency can be scaly lips. But nervousness, irritability, depression, confusion, rashes, dry skin, visual disturbances, anemia, and abnormally sensitive hearing. So I kind of look to that. Does sometimes when we're sick, noises sound louder. We go, oh my God, you're talking so loud, and people are not talking loud. Or the door slams, you're like, oh my God. So there's two things kind of going on there. One is like requirements for all these nutrients that we may be depleted in, and now we still need to help fight off the remaining bits of what's there and also rebuild. But also when we're in an acute phase, or we're in convalescence, we're in a heightened state of stress. The organism is trying to protect itself. So we actually have stress hormones going in recovery. And so we're way more sensitive to stress. And things that might not have bothered us before we got sick are now bothering us. Neurotransmitter production is low. So keep in mind that illness is a stress, physically and emotionally, and recovery is a stress. And so that's one way you know you're getting recovered is all that levels out, that stress reaction begins to level out. All right, next is folate. Beans, legumes, citrus. Oranges are full of folate. Any dark green leafy vegetable is full of folate. And so here's something I want to encourage. If you're in convalescence and you digestive capacity is low, cook you up some, I don't know, mustard greens, turnip greens. But remember, digestive capacity is low. So you don't eat the green, you drink what we call in the South pot liquor. You drink the pot liquor because that's where all the nutrition is. So all the water soluble vitamins are now in the juice. All of the essential fatty acids, because turnip greens, dark green leafy vegetables have quite a bit of essential fatty acids in them. The leafy greens do. It's now in the water. That fiber from the actual greens might be just really too hard to digest because capacity is low. Just drink the juice. Just drink the water from cooking. That's where all the nutrition is. The same with beans. So you can't digest beans. Your digestive capacity is low. Soak them overnight. Cook them half a day, just drink the juice. That's where the nutrition is. And then as your digestive capacity improves, you can add the fiber back in, right? So drink that pot liquor. All right, folate is needed for the production and maintenance of all cells, including the immune cells, for amino acid conversion, how we utilize protein, how our liver processes toxins, red blood cell formation, neurotransmitter synthesis, gene transcription, reproductive health, absolutely protects against neural tube defects, and can help protect against the risk of stroke.
We had a question here.
Yeah.
Stephanie asks, what does RDI versus UL mean?
RDI is a recommended daily intake. So they've done some studies on it and said, oh, this is what the majority of people do well with, right? The UL is the upper limit where in their studies they found that the majority of the people in the studies had some adverse effects. So when we talk about supplementation and vitamins, we can get too much of all these. And so this is where adverse effects came in, upper limit. All right, niacin, also water soluble. We don't actually get this from our food. We have to convert it from tryptophan. So niacin in food has to be converted in some process, some way or the other. Either through, like corn, the niacin had to be converted through soaking it in wood ash and making hominy, this whole process. So, which is why I really discourage people eating cornmeal right now, because it's not made in a traditional manner, unless they're using masa meal, Mexican masa meal, which has been. You can tell the texture is totally different. Niacin has been liberated in that. Otherwise, we need to get our niacin from liver, organ meats, pork, ground beef, any meat, eggs, peanuts, yeast, dried beans, green peas, wheat germs, whole grains, avocados keep showing up on the list, mushrooms, figs, prunes, dates. We have to have niacin for circulation. Metabolized drugs, if you're on a drug, you need niacin to do that. It helps train the immune cells. So the thymus uses it to help train T cells. B cells are trained, come out of the bone marrow trained. Bone marrow needs it. It's used in the Krebs cycle for energy production. It's utilized by the tissues of the skin, tongue, and digestive tract. It's used in the formation of sex and steroid hormones, red blood cells, fatty acid synthesis, and it helps remove excess nitrogen from our body needed for healthy nervous system, normal brain function. I really feel like a lot of people don't get enough niacin because they're too dependent on grains where it hasn't been converted. But top of my list on ones that people, along with vitamin C and A, that folks might be deficient in. Thiamine, grains mostly, and then we're down to spinach, cauliflower, nuts, and seeds. Avocado and pork. First time pork's kind of showed up on our list. It's needed for glucose metabolism. So we use a lot of thiamine up when we're sick, because when we're sick, our demand for glucose shoots out the roof. All right, so keep this in mind. Our demand for energy shoots out the roof. And if we're really sick, we're not taking that energy in. So if we're really sick and we're not taking energy in, the demand is so high that our body starts using our muscle for energy. Okay? And that's not a good place to be in. So then we get to wasting. So we need to be able to help our body utilize glucose better, whether it's from our foods or, like I say, just have a spoon of honey. Thiamine is the one that helps do this. So it's also needed for fatty acid and sterol production. It's important for the nerves and the nervous system. It's used in the synthesis of acetylcholine. It's important for muscle tone of the stomach, intestines, and heart. It's needed for immune system activation again. And if you're deficient, it can actually cause lesions on the nerves. So you can see already where it might play a role in MS. Next is B12. And I know I'm talking fast, but we're running out of time. We still got a lot to do. And I'm probably going to run a few minutes over, but we have time in there. All right, so B12, we can get it from our food. We don't make it, but we have to have intrinsic factor from our stomach and adequate stomach acid. And it's then absorbed in the small intestines, but we can store it for several years. Mostly, I mean, it's found in animal protein foods. I know some folks are like, well, how about algae? But they pretty much determined that that's a mirror image and it hits a receptor site, but it doesn't activate it. In anyone, but especially the elderly, a deficiency of B12, which is really, really common, can be manifested as symptoms of dementia. Absolutely essential for nervous system functioning. Stimulates growth of all cells. When I'm saying stimulates growth, repair, growth of all cells. It increases our energy level. It's needed in the ATP cycle. It's needed for the formation of red blood cells. It helps iron function better. So there's a relationship between B12 and iron. It's needed for the synthesis of DNA and RNA and what stem cells turn out to be. It's needed for production of choline and methionine. for thyroid hormone production. It's required by the methylation cycle, and it's used in the production of glutathione. And remember, the liver is taking a big hit in COVID. So glutathion is the liver's own personal antioxidant and repair agent. So anything we can do to have glutathione is production is going to be good.
Can I ask a quick question about B12?
Sure.
Is that one that's safe to take or good to take in supplement form, particularly for people who have been on a vegetarian diet, especially a long-term vegetarian diet?
If it's a long-term vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, and then I'm always suggesting, hey, just get your levels checked. No, don't even do that, because now they know that the test isn't really any good. And because the mirror image B12 is hitting the receptor site, the test is not sensitive enough to pick up the difference. So I'm just assuming there's going to be some deficiency. Anybody with the digestive issues, some deficiency. Anybody with thyroid issues, some deficiency. Anybody with an autoimmune disease, some deficiency. So yes, it's safe. Sublingual is the best absorbed.
Okay, and then the other question we had was, can you get B12 from bone broth, or does it have to be from the actual like meat itself?
Meat itself, not, bone broth is not a good source. Any other questions? Okay, the next is calcium. Dairy, obviously, and then dark green leafy veggies. And this is why it's so good. Another good reason to drink that pot liquor from your dark greens is it's full of minerals too. And I do suggest, if you're cooking greens, any kind, kale, mustard greens, turnip greens, I don't know, any green, collards, to put about a teaspoon of vinegar in there, and then that really draws the vinegar out of into the pot liquor. It's found in white beans and soybeans, in fish with bones. So eat your canned salmon, that's fine. Good source of calcium. It's in fermented veggies. The fermentation pulls the calcium out. Again, it's in the juice. So when your digestion is really low, eating fermented foods can be hard to digest. It's just still really high fiber. Just have a spoon of the juice. Just drink the juice. But this is really interesting and important, is the first step in attracting immune cells to the site where they need to be is a flash of calcium. Flash of calcium, it's like the light that goes off that says, come here, come here. So we need to have adequate calcium levels. It is the most common mineral in the body. And find your source. If you're supplementing, I generally don't suggest more than, and you're eating healthy, maybe 300 or 400 supplementation milligrams a day. So if we have enough calcium, it's actually going to be in our extracellular matrix waiting to be utilized for this. So we need to have it in storage. It's needed for, of course, strong bones and teeth, muscle contraction, helps regulate the heartbeat, necessary for nerve transmission, neurotransmitter release. It activates certain enzymes. So we've talked about, just briefly, of course, complementary protein, immune system. We've talked about the immune system, but we have another immune system, and that's our enzyme system. And these are still part of our immune system, and these are not digestive enzymes. These are protein enzymes that circulate in our bloodstream, and if they see something nasty, they just eat it. That's what they do. They just eat it, right? Calcium is needed to activate the enzymatic immune system. It's important for cell division, it's needed for blood clotting, and it helps reduce homocysteine levels. We need about 1,200 milligrams a day of calcium, and that should be from both combination of food and supplements if needed. All right, and if you have any questions, just pop them in there. Next is magnesium. Nut seeds, green leafy veggies, dairy products, avocados, apricots. Necessary for heart and brain function, helps mitigate the effects of stress, reduces spasms in the blood vessels, huge. It helps to make energy. And I've already been talking a little bit about magnesium, but it's needed for our production and the activity of our DNA and what we turn those stem cells into. It's also important in urea synthesis and helps modulate the immune system.
We had a
The next one, yeah.
when we're talking about like extracting the minerals, all of this, the vitamins and minerals from the vegetables, would it, like, is roasting work? Do you have to steam them, braise them? What's the best course?
Well, if you want to extract the minerals, you boil them or steam them, and then you drink the water.
And then Natalie asked about that, if you did fermented cucumbers as opposed to fermented leafy greens and you want to drink the water.
Yeah.
That work too?
The leafy greens have more essential fatty acids and cucumbers really don't, but you'll get some other activity and minerals. Right. All right, next is zinc. And zinc has gotten a lot of play in COVID. And it's another one that people often don't have enough of, just on a daily basis. And it's mostly from meat, and this is why. It's in egg yolks, it's in dairy. There's a small amount in whole grains and nuts, but the lectins block it. The lectins are the anti-nutrient that stops us from absorbing zinc. This is why you need to soak your nuts, seeds, and grains to release those lectins in your beans, so it liberates the zinc. Zinc is required for T cell activation, and a deficiency of zinc just causes all kinds of immune system dysfunctions. It helps detoxify the liver, it's needed in the methylation process. It's also needed for collagen formation, improves wound healing. It's needed by the thyroid. And we haven't even talked about the role of thyroid in recovery, but it would be a whole other topic. Supports the immune system, shortens the length of the common cold, and the common cold is a coronavirus. So this is why zinc has gotten a lot of play, because of the previous studies done on zinc and the other coronaviruses. Improves the healing of burns, it improves depression, and it improves vitamin A levels. So if your zinc is low, your vitamin A could be low. Selenium, I'm just going to quickly touch on this because I know we're running out of time. I need 10 more minutes. Is it okay if I talk in the break, and if people don't want to listen, they can go away?
Yeah, that works. And I do have a couple questions for you that I'll bring up at the toward the
Okay. Selenium, pastured meats, whole grains, brewer's yeast, liver, and butter. It is an antioxidant. It is also needed for the production of glutathione, and selenium and zinc often work together. So selenium has gotten some studies during this time period for the cold. It stimulates antibody formation. So if your selenium is low, you may not be making the amount of antibodies that you need to fight off what's going on. Slows tissue degeneration. The thyroid's got to have it for the conversion, along with zinc, from T4 to T3. It's needed for male fertility. It lowers overall cancer risk, useful for autoimmune disorders. It improves all over immune functioning, antiviral activity, and in clotting activity. So any questions on a virus? Because we're going to move into just a few phytonutrients and then some herbs.
Most of the questions that I've had were about the vitamins and nutrients, so I think you can just keep going.
Okay, so resveratrol, you can get it from foods. It's in grapes, mulberries, peanuts, cranberries, red wine, and Japanese knotweed, which is one of the reasons I think Japanese knotweed is working so well in this viral activity time. It has some very mild estrogenic activity if somebody's in menopause. If they're not in menopause, it doesn't seem to have the same activity. It is anti-inflammatory, potential COX-2 inhibitor. So it's really helping reduce the inflammation in the lungs, which is why Japanese knotweed is really helpful in reducing inflammation. If the inflammation is down, the immune system has a way in. So more inflammation a person has, the more constriction, more congestion, and the less able the immune system, blood and lymph, is able to do what they need to do. So you want to get inflammation down, which is why in the early days, doctors were just doing steroid shots, but it was lowering the immune system too much. So now we have anti-inflammatories that support the immune system, not reduce the immune system, but at the same time, lower inflammation, which is what we need.
So what is the effect of the anti-estrogenic activity?
So in younger women, it seems like it kind of fills up the receptors, but doesn't tend to turn them on because their natural estrogen levels are overriding that. But postmenopausal, it tends to be a really mild phytoestrogen. Next is pycnogenol. Absolutely stimulates the immune system, improves its activity, stimulates blood flow, acts as an antioxidant, aids in diseases of the retina, helps lower blood pressure, increases lymphocyte proliferation. It helps regulate cytokine release. Important. Pycnogenol, important during and in recovery. Studies found that it reduces asthma symptoms in children. It really helps reduce inflammation in the lungs. But if you're on a medication that depresses the immune system, you might not want to take this one. Quercetin, another phytonutrient. Studies found it reduces risk of all infections in the respiratory tract. I highly recommend it. I recommend it all the time for allergies, sinus problems, lung stuff. It is in these foods. Red onions, garlic, apples, berries, cruciferous, grapes, tea, tomatoes. But it's also in elderberry, and this is one of the reasons I think elderberry is so potent. Just from an anti-inflammatory point of view, where it's antiviral in the moment or not, it could still be useful as an anti-inflammatory because of the quercetin. It's also in St. John's wort and ginkgo. So it inhibits the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines. That's what quercetin does. If you've got a really, super acute phase going, just take the supplement because you'll have to drink a ton of elderberry, but it is still in the elderberry. Right? So I'm letting y'all read because we're running out of time. So other nutrients I didn't spend a lot of time on. Riboflavin, a B vitamin, is needed for health of the mucous membrane tissues, including the tissues of the lungs. Biotin, really, really super important in rebuilding the lungs. I mean, it's like top of the list in rebuilding the lungs. Iron, I've talked around iron, but it's needed for lymphocyte production and T cell differentiation, and Gary, stuff around the body. CoQ10 helps boost the immune system, and it is also an antioxidant. It's only found in meat. L-carnitine helps modulate the immune response. It's a protein. Meat's going to be your best source there. Let's talk quickly about some specific herbal aids. So this is about recovering. All these nutrients are important for you to help replenish what you've lost and to rebuild, right? But there's some herbs that can help get rid of the vestiges, and cleavers is just, and these are really specific. Cleavers just help clear that bronchial tube. I know that we think about cleavers as a lymphatic and a diuretic, but you can just feel it kind of like working its way down into that bronchial tree and everything just opening up. So I really encourage you to think about cleavers, even in an acute phase. It hasn't gotten much talk, but this is like a way old, tried and true traditional use. Astragalus, Maria mentioned that. It supports and increases the immune system activity. It's on my list of herbs that help rebuild the body and help support the body in the process of rebuilding. And American ginseng is right up there too. And I do encourage you to buy American ginseng that's been forest grown or ethically wild harvested. I've just not found the organically grown as being as strong enough. And American ginseng is also a low dose, like 3 drops a day, 5 drops a day. It helps build energy, stamina, and endurance. So if you take a lot of American ginseng, it's going to suppress energy. If you take a little bit, it's going to help build it. So the dose is really important on American ginseng. Next is lyre leaf sage, and lyre leaf sage just got through blooming where I'm at. It is my #1 restorative nervine after illness. It's huge. The immune system, and you use the whole plant, root, leaf, everything. The immune system, the nervous system, it just really suck it up. It takes the edge off everything. It increases energy. It's better than skullcap, better than passion flower, better than any of the other nervines I know to restore nerve energy. Next is dandelion. Remember that the liver has had a really tough time in the acute phase. It's now like really tense and it's really worked really hard. So we want to relax that and support it. And dandelion is my #1 for that. And then milk thistle or blessed thistle, and sometimes I combine them to help support liver health and glutathione production. Red clover, as much tea as you would like a day, and just throw your cleavers in with that. It helps move the lymph. And remember, what we want to do is get the lymph moving to remove those cellular wastes that have accumulated and haven't been able to move during the acute phase. It helps move mucus. It relaxes bronchial tubes. It used to be standard in a cough syrup, and it just kind of fell out of use as an antispasmodic, but it's always in my cough syrup. Burdock root also helps clear the lymph and supports liver and kidney activity, plus it's super nutritive. Nettle seed extract helps repair the damage to the kidneys that happened and restore their normal function. Dong quai, and I prefer that during recovery rather than the angelica. And the reason I do is the angelicas are a bit more oily, and that oiliness it post-recovery, that oiliness is really like super good during the acute phase, and there's a lot of, which we don't have time to go into, a lot of good activity contained in those oils. The same with Allen campaign, the oiliness, angelicas, the oiliness, osha, the oiliness, pine, the oiliness. All right, so that, but now we're in recovery. So we want something a little less oily. We want something more nourishing, moving, and warming to the blood, and that's dong quai or dong qui. And then medicinal mushrooms, which I feel like Maria went over really well, so I'm not going to go back over those. But then reishi is my favorite. And lion's mane. So reishi and lion's mane. So what we have to do is recover nerve injury, energy, recover that nerve energy, and then go to cola. A really good one to also help recover the nerve energy. If we don't recover the nerve energy, then signals are not going to appropriately get through and to tell our body to do what it needs to do to heal. Also, I like potentiating herbs, and any kind of formula you put together from the specific kind of list. And also, I want to point out, just like foods, I highly encourage you in the recovery phase not to do too many herbs at the same time. Remember, everything is kind of deficient and low when we're trying to rebuild. So potentiating herbs, they're called potentiating herbs in Southern folk medicine. It may be called something else in another system. But these help bind and bring a formula together. They help move the cellular waste. They activate lymph activity, and they direct the formula where you want to go. And they can also be called diffusive herbs. But cayenne, bayberry, prickly ash, lobelia, licorice, ginger, and any of these in your formula should be the last thing on the list, not the first thing. These in this low amount are movers. So if you're doing lobelia tincture to help like move stuff out of your lungs, and you're adding it to like you're making a formula from your tinctures in your closet, and you're putting in some red clover, you're putting in some burdock and some lyre leaf sage, and you decide, oh, lobelia is the one that resonates with you. It's like in that whole formula, in that whole 1 ounce bottle, lobelia should be 3 drops. So this is how low these are. These are the binders. These are not the active at this point. Hope I explained that well. Here's some like little things from other countries. I have a friend from India, and he says the government of India is suggesting people drink this twice a day. Golden milk, of any milk of your choice. It could be oat milk or soy milk, whatever. But in it, you put turmeric, ginger, ground black pepper, and cinnamon. And you do that twice a day. They're also in India, the government suggesting you make a Tulsi tea and you put cinnamon, black pepper, dried ginger, and raisins in it with a tiny touch of sugar. That is going to be a super warming, energizing nerve formula. It's going to get some energy to your nervous system. And then from Southern folk medicine, raisin water. I know raisin water is like amazing. If you've never done raisin water, get rid of cucumber water. Raisin water is much better. It's a third a cup of raisins, 2 cups of water. You simmer it for 20 minutes, and then you let it sit overnight. You strain it out, you reheat the water, and you drink it. And then in Madagascar, the government is saying every day, twice a day, you have the sweet Annie tea, which is an artemisia with lemon or honey. And they've gotten a lot of flack from other countries, especially the UK, because they're suggesting this. But as of yesterday, they had 0 deaths from COVID. Yeah. And not near the rate everybody else is. So other lifestyle things, get good quality sleep. Valerian, passionflower, skullcap, hops, St. John's wort, whatever floats your boat. Increase your melatonin. You can do this naturally, or you can do this with a supplement. If you're doing supplement, around 5 milligrams. But melatonin also activates our immune system. So if we don't get enough sleep and we don't have enough melatonin, we're missing a hormonal component of activation. But it's also found in some foods. Cherries, number 1. Tart cherries have more melatonin than any other food, and then oats are second. Then oranges, then St. John's wort, bananas, pineapples, and of course, getting good sleep in the dark. But sometimes when you're really sick and you're in recovery, the nervous energy keeps you awake. You're so tired you can't sleep. Everything is jittery. You can't sleep when you need to sleep the most. So I don't discourage a little supplemental melatonin just for a short time so you can get a good night's sleep, but I don't suggest it for more than 2 weeks. And then gentle movement, not intense movement, walk, stretch, yoga, tai chi. Walking is like awesome. Reduce your stress level in whatever way you need to. And then rest. You've got to have that rest. That doesn't mean you need to be laying around all the time. No, you need to keep your lymph moving. You need to keep your blood moving, and gentle walking or stretching will do that. But watch funny movies, not aggressive or sad movies. Watch the funny rom-com, not the sad rom-com. Putter around. Putter, which means you're not really accomplishing anything, but you're moving things from here to there. This is a time to putter. Like all day, you might rearrange, clean 3 shelves in a closet, and that's it. So this is a puttering time of gentle movement. And that's it. And thanks y'all for hanging in there. I have gone way over. I didn't realize how many slides I had. Questions?
There we go. Back. I pushed the wrong button for a second there. We have a lot of questions. Most of them are on nutrition. We have a few that are on herbs as well. We are running really close to time for Larkin, our next speaker. What I want to ask you is, do you have courses online on some of the nutritive and that sort of thing?
I have courses that I do through my herb school. If they just want to Google me, I've got a whole super in-depth nutrition course.
Right.
We just barely touched on stuff today. And I'm also willing, because I know I ran super over. If somebody has a question, if they will go to my website and hit contact and just ask me that question through my website, I'll happy to send an answer back.
Thank you. And if I get any questions that are really for you, I will make sure that I get the answers and we'll post them on
Okay.
the page for you.
All
And
right. Would you like me to send you a copy of like,
if you wanted, that would be awesome because I can then
yeah,
put this up.
I'm happy to do that. And I'm, again, sorry I ran over. There was just so much important information I felt like I needed to go over.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like this could be like a half-day workshop just talking about recuperation, which I think it's
Yeah.
almost art, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got one comment I want to make sure I get to. I got a ton of thank yous here on the chat box, but one that came from, I believe it's the YouTube feed. Patrick sent it to me from there, I believe. It's Phyllis, you are so amazing. Thank you so much for this bounty of nutritional information centered on COVID. And I want to echo that. That's part of why.
Oh, well, thank y'all. Thanks for having me.